Okay, thank you very much. We're here as the Article IV delegation from the International Monetary Fund. We do this type of assessment for every economy that's a member of the IMF every year. There's a statement that will be issued after the meeting. I'll just provide you with a short summary of that. So first, I'd like you to take away three main points, and then I'll elaborate on some details. First, we see that the economy is relatively buoyant. It's been driven by increasing tourism activity from new Asian markets, and we see that the prospects for tourism for next year are relatively good as well, given the infrastructure investments underway. We also see that the position on the external sector has stabilised. It's stabilised in particular much since we were last here, and the current account data have been revised, so the current account deficit is substantially smaller. If we look at the parallel market compared to the official market, the parallel market premium has also narrowed. So that's all good news. However, despite the improvement in the real economy, the fiscal deficit has continued to widen. And this is because of very high public expenditure, and public debt is very high. So we think the fiscal position does need to be addressed. The 2015 budget includes both revenue and spending measures to tackle the fiscal deficit, and we think it's very important that these measures are fully implemented. So we support the green tax, and we also think that expenditure control is very important, and the measures there, it will be very important to stick to those. On that front, we'd note that one of the measures is to better target subsidies. That needs to be done in a way that protects social safety nets. But what we've seen is that the subsidies previously have gone to the highest, the richest people as well as the poorest. We think that it's better to target those so that they do benefit the poorest in society rather than benefiting the rich. Then looking to the longer term, on public sector employment as well, we see the keeping public sector employment as a whole relatively constant. It should help contain costs, but that would need to be accompanied by containment of the wage sector bill as well. Looking to the longer term, the government has a number of initiatives underway, such as the special economic zones. And there, we think it's important that the regulatory framework is transparent and even-handed, and that any exemptions to tax are clearly ring-fenced and limited. I think those are the remarks that I would like to make, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Would anyone like to ask a question?
Yeah, Minivan News.
Mm-hmm.
The last time an IMF delegation was here, they said they weren't entirely sure how the economy was functioning. Have you picked up any additional insights this time around?
I think that some of the revisions to the data, particularly on the external front, show that perhaps the current account deficit was smaller than had previously been estimated. So that's one fact. The economy has moved on 2 years, so we've had another 2 years where tourist activity has picked up, and that's clearly helped the economy.
Anyone else?
Given the state of the economy now, how do you recommend that the government go about with acquiring loans from foreign actors?
I think on infrastructure spending, as we say in the statement, what needs to be done is you need to try and find external financing at an affordable cost, and also be mindful that when trying to put in place large projects, be sure that the benefits to growth outweigh any financing costs. So over the long run, we think that there needs to be a careful look at the projects to make sure that that's the case. And also, for a small economy, one can run into what we'd call absorptive capacity constraints. Again, that's something to be mindful of. Is it easy enough to obtain the goods and the services and the labour to put together the big projects?
You talked about the SEZs.
Mhm.
Does the IMF have any opinions on benefits of SEZs in general, the way they're practiced in other countries and could be practiced here?
I think, as I said, the regulatory framework has to be clear and transparent, and tax exemptions clearly ring-fenced and limited. One of the good things about the Maldivian tax system is that it's quite simple. It's quite universal and easy to administer. So one needs to take care to protect that.
From NBC News, you have mentioned that the public expenditure is very high here,
Mhm.
and that the 2050, the things mentioned to explain it, that it needs to be implemented. If it is not implemented, how badly can it affect our economy?
Well, public debt is already very high and would continue to rise, and the fiscal deficit would rise as well. That would weaken the economy. You could run into risks and vulnerabilities from overseas. So it's actually very important that measures are taken to reduce the fiscal deficit.